Clayton Stephenson with us. He was a competitor here at the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition and is in many ways the future of classical music.
Right. Welcome, Clayton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
We just wanted to let you know that we both loved your performances. It was such a joy to hear you play, and you have such a wonderful, powerful personality at the piano. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I was having a great time.
Good.
I felt like you had the whole audience completely entranced in your performance of the Dante Sonata by Liszt.
You could hear a pin drop.
Everyone was just breathless, and I felt like the music you had almost become lost in the music. Like it wasn't like Clayton Stephenson up there. It was just this transcendent moment that it was such a joy to listen to and to behold. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So can you talk a little bit about your overall experience here? Because we keep stressing that it is a festival, not only is it a competition. So give us the inside scoop.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I think this competition and festival has been a really great learning experience, because from the first day there's this competitive atmosphere, and everybody just starts practicing. I think it was like during the first 4 days where I really improved a lot.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I think
most practicing you've done in a while.
Yeah,
really focused practicing.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the festival part is I think I learned so much from the symposiums.
Great.
I really love the jury symposium. I love
which happened yesterday.
Yeah, the jury symposium happened yesterday. I love the conducting one, because usually at a young age like this, we don't really get to perform with orchestras as often. And she gave us some of the inside tips.
Yeah, she was very generous with that.
Yeah, and just watching how Sean Chen and Ms. Chen interact on stage and the problems they go through.
Exactly.
That was very insightful.
But what about the sort of friendship aspects, the socializing
the
aspects?
social dynamic. That's what interests us.
Yeah. So I've gotten, I think, 22 new friends, even though some of them I knew a little bit about before, but now,
from Juilliard.
But I think through music we've connected so much. Yeah, even people who are from different countries, you can just connect with them instantly through music. And if you just talk about how you like this piece, I like this piece,
you obviously have a lot to relate to, given that you all play the piano so amazingly well and have different stories, but you've arrived at the same place.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I've noticed in my life, and obviously because Greg and I spend so much time together, is that when you get pianists together, it becomes like piano nerddom. I mean, it's just you geek out on piano music. Have you been able to observe differences in the way that you practice, the way that you approach interpretations, or even the kind of lesson lifestyle, by talking to the different competitors? Because you're not all from the States and you have different traditions. So have you been able to learn about different approaches?
I think, definitely. I think people all have their unique qualities, and that's what they bring to the competition. And just listening to them play, I think I've went back to after I was out. I went back to the YouTube channel and I listened to a lot of the competitors, and I've learned a lot from them. Because some people, they have great technique I can never have in my life.
Don't say that. Don't say that. You're so young, and you have technique to spare.
Thank you. And some people have a really great tone, which I would strive for. And I think it's just listening to just this high level of piano playing. It just really gets you inspired to practice as well.
Well, that brings up a question from Twitter, and then I have a couple questions for you about the future of classical music, since that's what we were talking about just a minute ago. Somebody was asking, how long does it take to learn these concertos at performance level? And the example he gave was 1 month.
1 month.
And
it varies, right? On the
how
concerto,
long? How prepared were you if you had made it to the final?
What was
round?
your concerto?
It was Liszt Concerto Number 1.
Okay.
Liszt Concerto Number 1. So
I don't think you're ever ready.
I know.
You don't know what's gonna happen when you go on the stage with the orchestra, because it's a totally different atmosphere. You're not with just a piano accompanist where you can communicate one-on-one.
Right.
But you have this huge orchestra with all the people there. So I never really felt prepared, but I think just to get everything
how long
technically
ago?
done, I think I started this about 2.5 months ago.
Wow.
The concerto?
Yeah, the concerto.
You started learning the concerto 2.5 months
quick
ago?
learner, and then you programmed it in an international competition.
Wow. So I'm assuming you have not played it with an orchestra before.
I played the first movement.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good.
okay.
I think it was a little bit
really good
reckless to
practice.
maybe put the songs a little bit earlier.
That is
but, yeah.
really a fast duration. When the guy here wrote on Twitter, 1 month question mark, I chuckled to myself because that's kind of an extreme situation.
Yeah.
You've heard of those situations where somebody's been called and asked to replace somebody, and maybe they have a month to learn a concerto or less, and those become legend in piano culture. Typically, people spend more time learning these pieces. They're hard.
I think for to really get a concerto solid, one of your really top pieces, I think you have to spend a year.
Oh yeah.
Or just figuring out the backstory and just the story that you want to tell through it. I think one of the things I like to do is I like to make up a story.
Oh really?
Oh,
Playing, so I have my own little stories.
Well, perfect for a list.
Yeah.
But that also makes me wonder, for the entire programming of the competition, how did you balance pieces that you've known for years, your staples, and new music?
Well, we should first ask, were there pieces that you had known for years, or did you learn all of these in 2.5 months?
No. I've had the Chopin Scherzo actually for a long time, but I haven't really visited, so I had to just go through it again, just get the notes down, and then just start. Because I think once you go back to a piece, you kind of have a new feeling for it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just, you have this sort of weird middle ground where you're just not sure if you're doing the right thing.
And then you sometimes revert to old habits. If you played that when you were too young, you're like, why am I doing that?
Yeah, you try to find different things that are new.
But then what about brand new pieces?
Brand new pieces, I've my octave etude was actually
I
pretty
loved
new.
the octave etude, and I played that one. So sometimes I'm beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Well, Dino Lipati, a very famous pianist from the past, he actually said to his students, you shouldn't play a piece in public until you've worked on it for over 2 years. And I know, whoops, we've all been guilty
You and I, it's 2 days. Oh, God.
Well, often we are writing our own pieces, and we're always changing things. And so the day of the concert, we rewrite pages of music, and it's not a 2-year.
Right. I mean, we don't really recommend that either.
But the 2-year performance, or 2 years of working on a piece will give you, as you started to describe, you can bring yourself to the table.
Yeah, definitely.
In a month, it's a little bit easier to just kind of rely on recordings and other experiences you've had with the piece versus your own living with a piece. And so Dino Lipati made a real strong argument for living with the music. Of course, when you're young, a lot of the challenge is to learn as much music as you can, so that you can live with it then throughout your life and grow with these pieces.
Can you also talk about the preparation process? Because you're 16, you're in high school, and I imagine, looking at your bio, you're very well-rounded. So what is a typical day like?
Well, usually I have school. Well, now it's the summer, but usually, I have school, and then after school, I would practice for about 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
And then I would get home at around 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Because I have to take an hour to travel back home.
Oh, on the subway?
Yeah, on the subway.
We know New York life.
And then after that, I would just start on my homework and then go to sleep and just repeat that over and over.
Every day.
But for Saturdays, since I have Juilliard pre-college,
that's an all-day thing.
Yeah, that's an all-day thing. But I think that's more like an off day, kind of. You get to relax, see your music friends, and just hang around a little bit. But then Sunday, it's back to practicing, and then
back to practicing. That's the biggest practice day for you.
Yeah,
then?
that's the biggest practice day for me. Yeah.
How do you balance these academic and extracurricular interests with your passion for music? Are you already looking ahead and thinking about college and auditions, or are you equally invested in your schoolwork?
I think actually schoolwork and all these extracurriculars, I think they go hand in hand actually. I think through schoolwork, I've learned a lot more about my pieces.
Yeah.
Good.
So, through history, especially,
Absolutely.
there were some things that I didn't know about. One thing I started looking at was the time period which the composer actually wrote the piece.
Very important.
And maybe the things that were happening at that time, which would have affected
history,
his
revolutions
mood. Yes,
going on.
So I think it's actually, in a way, boosted my music playing.
Yeah, we would agree.
Well, earlier we watched one of our music videos, and we started talking about where we see classical music heading with with video. What do you see? I mean, you have your friends at school. Do they think you're really cool because you play the piano, or do they think that's nerdy?
Like, do you have to sell them on it?
Yeah, I think people now think like classical music's a little bit like something old-fashioned, but they still think it's very cool, but just something they don't really have a lot of experience in.
Right.
Yeah. So I think going forward, I think the best thing to do is to get people more educated on classical music, because I think like the general audience know like the famous pieces like Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2,
right?
Like
Rondo La Turca,
Tchaikovsky Concerto.
Yeah, but I think some of the real gems are when you get to know a lot of music and you get to discover like some pieces. Like I recently discovered Brahms Sonata No. 3, and I'm just absolutely loving it. Yeah, so I think just increased education.
You would play that so
fun.
well. You should do it.
You should do it. Maybe not yet.
Not yet.
You might want to do other Brahms first.
Actually, but that kind of reminds me. What was the spark for you to even start piano?
Yeah, what got you going?
Well, when I was younger, my dad always bought me like synthesizer and everything, but I think I viewed piano as something for fun at first, and I went to a teacher who wasn't that hard on the technique, but she really made me love music.
Oh, see.
Yeah, so
I got
so instead of like a chore, I think music was something that was like my outlet.
Right.
And whenever I was tired, I would just go practice.
So you were playing for the love of music. Was she doing primarily classical, or were there no popular styles?
No, I only got into popular later on. In
so you are into popular.
Yeah, like talk about what's on your playlist, like your Spotify playlist.
A lot of popular music. Yeah.
That's good. Like top 40 or like hip hop. Like
well, there's like jazz, a little bit of 90s music because my mom really loves
I love 90s.
Yeah.
like who's like name an artist?
I like Billy Joel a lot.
Oh, well, you're a pianist, so yeah, great.
Do you ever
songwriter.
play any of these pieces at the piano?
Sometimes, yeah. When I'm feeling extra groovy on the piece, I might just look at the chords.
Would you ever consider playing some of this music on a classical recital?
I don't think so, because I think classical music is like a whole different level. I think one of the things is like I don't listen to that much classical music in my spare time because because it requires so much thinking, and I think
focus.
Sometimes when I just want to relax and just have like background music, I'll put on classical music.
Which I think is ironic because people say the opposite. Like they're like, oh, classical music is so relaxing. It's my background music, and I'm like, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite for me as well. Well, we would challenge you to, perhaps reconsider in some ways. If you think about Mozart writing his variation sets, he was taking the popular tunes of the day. So was Beethoven. Liszt was certainly doing that with the popular songs and the operas that were just all a part of society. And he was finding ways to take these themes and turn them into something mind-blowing and glorious, and we really encourage seeing that be done with the popular music of our time to keep the form relevant like it was 200 years ago.
And small steps, like it could just be an encore, not putting it in your major program.
Like Van Cliburn, as we discussed earlier, after playing the Tchaikovsky concerto at the competition, he played a Russian bar song as his encore.
But that's great, and it's wonderful to talk to a young artist like yourself who's obviously very curious and passionate about what you do. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you, Clayton, and all the best to you.
Thank you.
Best wishes. Thank you for
Fantastic
joining us.
pianist. Thank you.
Clayton Stephenson from the United States, a pianist who studies in New York City and delivered amazing performances here at the Cliburn International Junior Piano Competition, one of 23 competitors that were flown here to perform. Over 170 applied.